Yeah, so this is going to be a two-part tutorial, and it's very, I think it's going to be one of the more interesting tutorials made for this channel, because it's going to deal with a fairly complicated subject, but once we understand how this problem is solved, we're going to understand a lot about the underlying architecture of suiteCRM, suiteCRM. So even though this is not like a super quick walkthrough, this is going to allow you to do these modifications on your own, and as opposed to a lot of the other tutorials that I've seen that deal with this specific subject, where they basically say, okay, this is how I'm doing it for my modules. I'm going to show it how you're going to do it for your modules. So that's the vital difference here. So what we're basically trying to accomplish here is we want a custom module known as inventory, which is here, to have a subpanel that is going to be a contacts subpanel. So when we open up a unit of inventory, like a record, we want to have this contact subpanel with the custom field that is going to change from unit of inventory to unit of inventory while the contact is the same. So not to confuse you too much, for example, A2 has a contact named John, and his field is going to be equal to John1. But if John is also assigned to A1, then that field can be, for example, John 125. So while John is the same, it's that one field that may be varied for different units of inventory, and that's a very important functionality that's unfortunately not available like out of the box with suiteCRM Community Edition or with suiteCRM. So the first part that we'll do here, why it's a two-part tutorial, is we're going to add that field basically to the subpanel. We're going to add it to the relationship table that links the units of inventory with the contacts module. And we're going to make it in a way that's going to allow it to be shown in the subpanel, but it's not going to be modifiable by the end user at that point. And then in the second part of the tutorial, we're going to look at how we can make this field modifiable by the end user. And that's going to be an even more interesting tutorial, I think, because we'll deal with the creation of custom beans. So that's super exciting and interesting, is how do we actually create beans that can be modified. So what we'll do here is we'll start with a quick overview of the elements that we'll need to have in place. So that's why this tutorial is different, because you'll basically define these elements first that are applicable to you, to your specific situation, and then basically you're going to use these predefined elements throughout the tutorial, right? In this part one, we're going to deal with the situation where we have a custom module. So the UN inventory is a custom module, and we're going to call it the host module. So the host module is the one that's going to host the subpanel, right? And the submodule is going to be the contacts module. So this is the module that is inside the host module, right? You see the difference? What this is, the subpanel, is just a miniature list view of the submodule. So the information that you see here is basically a miniaturized list view of contacts. And why I really drill it down super important like that is because that's the place where people get confused, and that's the place that you can end up in trouble if you don't define it correctly. So the host module, in my case, it's UN inventory, and the submodule is contact, right? And I can show you another way of displaying it just on one screen. The host module is normally the one that can have multiple submodules in it. And one of these multiple submodules is going to be your submodule, right? In this case, it's going to be contacts, and the main one is inventory. So if we go to define them, the way that we write certain elements in here is going to be case sensitive, and we also need to use the right form being plural or singular. So that's one of the quirkiness of I guess suiteCRM is that they have that in place. It's if you don't use the right capitalization, or if you put it in a plural instead of singular, it can be plural or singular, you will end up in trouble. So the host module, I've defined it as UN inventory. That's the way that it appears. I mean, that's the name of the bean, you could say. That's how it's written. And the submodule is this. So these elements will be used throughout the tutorial. So the next thing is SH. So what I call it is basically submodule, host module. And the way that we put it is basically name of the submodule immediately followed by the name of the host module. And as you can see here, followed by the host module, no space. Make sure that the core module name is written exactly as it appears in include modules.php. So let's take a look at that location. So basically it's here, so include and then modules.php, right? This is all of our core modules. So these are the ones that are like built in, right? So the way that it appears here, we can, I don't know, like do a quick search, contact. As you see the way that it appears here, it's contact. So that's the way that it's spelled here. So in your case, if the submodule is a host module, you'll go and find it here and get the right spelling. And it's followed by the host module. So in my case, the host module is a custom module, so it's not going to be here. It's going to be here. So if we open it up, we need to go to the custom folder. Then we're going to go to the application, then extension, then include, then modules. Okay, so it's going to be here. The way that it's written is this way. So this is going to be the right way to write it. Okay, perfect. So this stuff is handled. So start doing this for your example. Then the relationship name. So the relationship name is going to be basically the name of the table inside the database. So when you create a relationship between the two modules, by the way, you need to have a relationship already in place before you proceed with all of this. So basically this is the name of the table in the database, which is this. And then we have the relationship name, which is basically, it's most often just the name of the table, but without the underscore C. Underscore C, by the way, stands for customization or custom. That's how suiteCRM basically identifies elements which were created after the fact. So those are like your custom elements. And the custom panel name. So the custom panel name, we'll get to it, like, well, I'll explain more what it is, but right now just give it a simple name, which is going to be the for, the word for, followed by the name of the host module. So in this case, it's for followed by UN inventory. And here I put my columns for the relationship that are inside the relationship table, but you can just disregard it for now. So I'll do a very quick overview. So what we're going to do is we're going to add these custom fields to the relationship table, and I'll show you what they look like here. So UN inventory contacts one. So this is our relationship table, and the relationship table basically, it allows us to link our records together, right? So we can link the unit of inventory with the contact, and the way that we do it is we indicate what is the ID of the basically the ID of this relationship. So what is the ID of the inventory, unit of inventory, and what is the ID of the contact here. So now what we want to do is we want to add some custom fields to this relationship. So it's going to be a start date and an end date. So we know when these two records are linked together, their custom start date is this and this. But if, for example, it's this unit of inventory linked with a different contact, the date start and date end is going to be different. So the overview here is we're going to add those fields to the database, right? Then we're going to make suiteCRM, suiteCRM aware that these fields exist by putting them inside the vardevs file. And this special vardevs file is basically going to allow us to make these fields visible in subpanel. So basically, when we add these fields, right, we need to somehow tell suiteCRM that, hey, these fields exist, right? Like we can use these fields. And the way that we do it is through the vardevs file. So that's a very, very simple overview. There's more stuff behind it, but okay, so basically it gives you like a very general idea. So how do we add these files to the database? That's the very first thing that we'll do. We need to locate the custom metadata relationship name metadata.php file and add our start and date and fields. So let's go and pull that up here. It says here relationship name metadata.php. So now our case relationship name is going to be this, right? So let's find it here. Custom metadata relationship name, which is here, UN inventory contacts 1. Yeah, relationship name is actually this, not this, without the underscore. Okay, so we're going to open it up, and then we'll add these fields here in the fields array. So where's the fields array? Is here. It's our fields array. So we'll go like this, and you see the format. I guess here it has them numbered, right? That's a mistake. Okay, and then this one is going to be number 6. Okay, so we added them. We're going to save it, and then we're going to do repair and rebuild. One important distinction here is between core modules and custom modules. So in my case, one of the modules that is being linked to is not a core module. So that's why we're doing this inside the custom metadata folder, right? If both modules were core modules, we'd be doing it directly inside the metadata folder. So that makes the customization not upgrade safe, obviously, if you're not using the custom folder. So something to keep in mind. So now we're going to do repair and rebuild. To do this, we'll go to admin, then we do repair here. It's going to rebuild it, and after doing the repair and rebuild, it's going to ask us to confirm that we want to add these tables to our database. So you see here, alter table, blah, 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 add this and this. We're going to execute. And then if we take a look at our table again, we are going to have the date start and date end fields. So that's amazing. That stuff is done. So next thing that we need to do is we need to make these fields readable by the system. So to do that, we always go through the vardevs file. So the name that you see here, this can be any name actually, but like just to be consistent, we'll put a relationship name underscore vardevs, and we're going to put it here. And don't forget, submodule, not the host module, but the submodule. This is where you can mess stuff up if you don't do it correctly. So let's copy paste it and then discuss about what we have here and how everything works. So this deals with the actual architecture of suiteCRM. So one of the things that vardevs does is obviously indicate what fields are available inside a module. And here what we start with is the fields called the relationship name fields. So this is the part, like the relationship name, obviously this is going to be the name of your relationship. So if we go to the top, the relationship name is this. So that means that we're basically telling the system to go ahead and grab all of the relationship fields that are available for this specific relationship. So for the union between like you and inventory and contacts, what are the relationship fields that are available? So we have this. These are all relationship fields that deal with the relationship between you and inventory and contacts. So we're basically telling the system to go ahead and grab them. And what we need to do next is indicate what those actual fields are. We're going to tell it what is the link basically? What is the relationship name that was used? The join link name is the table, so it's basically this table here. And once we define the fields that are here, we're also going to drill down and define them further below, basically. So the fields that you see here are the fields that are here. And very important distinction. So, okay, so we'll go through the basic stuff. So we're replacing the relationship name. We've replaced it. We've replaced this. What else is in red? This stuff here. So basically here we're going to put the relationship name. So that's this stuff here, right? We're going to put it in the link section. And then for the join link name is the relationship table. So relationship table underscore C, like this. And for core modules, it's just the host module because of the legacy code setup. So if your host module is a core module, so in our case, our host module is not a core module, it's a custom module. So it's a module that we created, right? Then basically, if it's a core module, then it's going to be different. I'll do another version of this tutorial for 2 core modules also, so don't worry about that for now. And then we have basically the relationship table, which is here. So below, the part that is below is the definition of those fields drilled down further, as explained before, but it's very important to mention here. So you see the setup here. Why is this pointing to this? This is the key value pairs, right? This key here is the name of the column inside your database. So you see ID here is the ID here. Then you have the date start here is the date start here. And then the date end that is there, that is the date end that is there. So you need to adapt it to your own column names in your case, whatever you have there. And these things here, these are the aliases. So this alias here is what is going to be used below in the var_defs, and this is also the alias that we're going to be using when we're going to be sculpting our subpanel, when we're going to be putting the definitions of the subpanel. So you see here, usually alias is going to be something short and sweet, but in my case, it's like super verbose, but that's just a personal preference, right? That's the way I want it, but you can put it the way you want it, right? So below, we're defining those fields. So once again, do not use the official name, use the alias. So I'm going to put the alias here. This repeats here. Then we're going to put the v name. It's basically a label. And then we're doing the same thing for this and for this. Okay. So when this part is done, we're basically just made these fields available in the subpanel. But right now we need to go ahead and change our subpanel to include these fields in them. But at this point they're includable. Like without this it wouldn't work. You always need to define them in var_defs first. So before we jump into the next part, let's do a quick overview of what this part is going to do. The subpanels, they have various metadata files. I mean, in general, there are various metadata files, but in this case, we're going to look at the metadata files that deal with the subpanels. So the overview of what we're going to do is we're going to basically open up the metadata file for the subpanels for the host module. And we're going to say that, hey, suiteCRM, for submodule subpanel 3, I want you to use a custom file, right? I don't want you to use like the default submodule file. I want you to use a custom file. So that's the first metadata file for the host module. Then we're going to basically create a metadata for the submodule. So we told, for example, suiteCRM, hey, for the subpanel 3, use the file called xyz.php. And that xyz.php file is also a metadata file for the submodule, in which we're going to say that this specific submodule here is going to have our date start and date end fields, those fields here. So hopefully it's not too confusing, but it's an important distinction to make. So the very first thing that we'll do is we'll find our main host module metadata file. And the location of that file is going to be, so we'll find it here, custom extension modules, host module, extension layout definitions, file name.php. Let's go ahead and grab it. Okay, so it's custom extension modules. The host module is UN inventory. That's the one that is going to host the contact subpanel, then extension, then layout defs, then file name.php. And file name.php, it's usually host module, submodule, host module.php. So host module, submodule, host module.php. Confusing enough? Okay, so let's open it up. And so basically for every subpanel that it has, it should have that file. So this subpanel is going to have a file, this one, this one, this one, and they're all going to be inside layout defs, right? So when we open this one up, what we need to do is look at the subpanel name. Right now it has the name as default. So default is actually the name of a PHP file, which is default.php. So that file default.php is going to define how this submodule is going to behave, like what it's going to have inside, settings, etc. So we're going to change it, and we're going to put it to, guess what? This guy here. So the custom panel file name, the one that I told you we're going to come back to. So let's go ahead and update it here for uninventory.php. That's what it's going to be. Don't put PHP, just put the name. And when we go to the subpanel, right now we're going to create this file here, which is also a metadata file. Okay, so we're going to basically, well, we need to find that file first, or actually at this step here. So we're going to find it in modules, submodule, metadata, subpanels, PHP. So if we're talking about the architecture of the way that it works, let's remember that this is the host module, this is the submodule. So this metadata file here is going to be located in the folder of the submodule, because it's basically a subpanel that belongs to the submodule, right? So that's why it's very important when we look at the paths, we're always looking in the right place. So in this case, it's going to be in modules, submodule, metadata, subpanels. Let's go ahead and find it. So modules, module, submodule is going to be contacts. Metadata, subpanels, default.php. So we're going to grab this file here, the contents of this file, and we're going to create a new file inside this location here. So it's going to be in custom modules, submodule is contacts, then metadata, and then subpanels. Okay, there's no subpanels, so we need to create that directory, subpanels. By the way, if ever you find yourself that you don't have a specific folder in place, just go ahead and create it, subpanels. Then we're going to give it for uninventory.php. We're going to copy paste the that file, and so by creating that file in custom modules, basically we can now point to it from here. So we pointed to it from here, so this is going to be equal to this, right? And now the only thing that's left to do is basically to include our fields in that subpanel. So first thing we'll do is we'll load the relationship fields. So the same way that, remember how we did it in the var defs? Putting it in the field defs here. The relationship name fields. So how was it? It's like this here, right? That's how it was defined. And the same way that we did it as the way we did it in VARDEVs, we said, okay, go ahead and grab all the fields, but then we specify exactly the name of the fields. We basically drill down and give very precise definition of those fields. Inventory context. Okay. These are from your VARDEVs. These are the aliases from your VARDEVs that we talked about before. These guys here are what you defined here. They must match 100%. Now we're going to save this whole thing. We're going to do a repair and rebuild, and then we'll see if any of this actually worked. Okay, so I'm doing repair and rebuild. Now if I go to my unit of inventory, if I assign a name to it, for example, like Eric Kontaktovich, you see we have the date start and date end. We need to define the labels, but I mean, that's cosmetic work, super easy. Let's, for example, say that, okay, let's update it. That's the second name that was defined here. So you see the date start here. Let's say, and then we'll put this, okay, let's make it different. I mean, 1 day later. Let's refresh. Okay, that was the wrong thing. It's not this one, but it was rather this one that was supposed to be modified. Oh, okay, I was looking at 0, 1. I thought this was the counter. That's why I got confused. Anyways, the ID is here. It's not auto-incremented, so... Okay, anyways, never mind. So, it works. Voila. So, we have this here. Date start, date end, not modifiable by the end user, but available inside the subpanel. So, you see here, this is the unit number 2. And you have Eric Kontaktovich with these start dates. Let's go ahead and go to unit number 1. We'll also assign Eric Kontaktovich, but for this guy we'll put we want to put different dates, right? So this one we'll put the start date, instead of February it will be January 1st, then the end date will be January 2nd. We'll go ahead and refresh, and we can see that for Eric Kontaktovich the dates are different when he's assigned to a different unit of inventory. So our functionality works. This is it for the part number 1. The part number 2 is we'll make this field modifiable by the end user. What if you want the end user to go ahead and modify this with some fields in an edit view instead of doing it yourself? You'll find out how to do it next. If you found this video at all helpful, please subscribe. And also the file that you see here, what I'll do is I'll try to put it, there's this new forum. I think it's like a copy of the old forum that was created, but I'm pretty sure you can actually host files there. It's called suiteCRMforum.com. And so I'll try to put my files there. If it works, I'll leave the file in the description. If not, maybe I'll try to use a paste bin or something. But yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.